Hey everybody, welcome back into another special episode of Husker Women's Wednesday, powered by Emeritus. I'm Jessica Coody as we celebrate National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Today's conversation has been one that I've had on the radar for a long time. In fact, we've had multiple requests for it, but she's probably the busiest lady in all of Nebraska. The Assistant AD of Football Administration, Dr. Susan Elza. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm fired up. I'm fired up.
I told you I've been asking you, I feel like since August, but you are so busy, and the portal season just ended. Have you slept any?
You know, we have not. I mean, everybody, it was quick, for everyone because number one, the portal, and then number two, school started earlier. Mm-hmm. So, you came off that bowl game and you're right into the next season already. I mean, when you think about it. And, those guys, our staff that had to go on the road, including Coach Rhule, I mean, those are the real heroes because they truly, at least we're grounded here and getting, all of our new portal players and our high school players that joined us, 24 of them, we're here in one place and they're going all over the country to find our next, players that'll join our team. So it has been a grind.
I think it's been cool. We've got a little bit of a glimpse of some of the portal visits with the video staff and seeing a little bit of that. But I was talking to you literally the day of the Las Vegas Bowl, and you couldn't even schedule those. You didn't really even know who you were going to be able to get on and when yet because you couldn't officially. So I think people might be interested in how you guys go about handling what the visit looks like and then how you get it scheduled and pull it off so seamlessly.
Well, I mean, first of all, kudos to our recruiting staff. I mean, Stewart has been such a great addition, to our staff and where he may not do all the logistics of it, when you added the synergy of what was already in place, with Keith Williams and Avery Gossett and all the people that are there to make those pieces to come together on very, very, very short notice. It's amazing how well, that it rolls out. And maybe I shouldn't say amazing because, we have such strong leadership on this staff and we're all bought into the same things. The standard is the standard, and, we want these players to come here and see, what Nebraska has to offer and see everything about this football program. And, to get it programmed in, it touches everything inside the football program, but there's pieces that, are outside the football program. Dennis is one that comes to mind for me because we couldn't do this, without academics and compliance assisting us with everything we're doing. But, I love every minute of it because as much as they're interviewing us, we're interviewing them. And I don't know if interview is the right word, but this is somebody that's going to join our football family. And, where you want these players to come in and be great and have all this impact on the field, you truly want these players to come in and be here for all the right reasons. And that's just to become, a better person, a better player, to come into this family, let us love you, let us make you better, let us coach you, and get you to where you need to be and help you reach all your goals. So it's cool. It's a lot.
How many group text messages do you have going on?
Oh, my gosh. I couldn't even. I pin a lot of them at the top. But, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, because I'm in every one just so I can see the flow of everything. I always feel like my job is just to make sure the dots are connected. I don't want to take anything away from the leadership that we have in place. I sometimes don't even think they really need me to do that, but you want everything to be at such an elite level to roll out the red carpet for these families that are coming, with their sons and checking out our program. But the group text, I mean, as many as they'll let me pin at the top, they're at the top, but then they're also throughout, and then I can't remember, I'm like, what did I name that group text? I mean, I think people understand this, especially in our staff, but it's a lot because every player has its own separate text thread, and we're just trying to make sure that we're all very connected on, what is the name of the player? What is the name of mom? What is the name of dad? What is the name of girlfriend that may come with them?
What's their favorite food?
What's their favorite food? What are they saying about the place? What do they want to see more of? And so you're just constantly trying to keep up with it. I don't care what role you're in on this staff. We all feel a very large sense of urgency to check every box for these players so that they can make informed decisions, about us and coming here and joining our Nebraska football program.
I feel like communication, right, has been critical because there are so many moving parts of what you guys have to accomplish.
Yes. One of my favorite things, and I know Coach had said it in a staff meeting, but it was something I'd read before, way young in my career, way early, is to use precise language precisely. And if there's one thing that I think we do pretty well is we're very efficient. How we speak across the program, I do think it's very hard to keep us all on the same page. But if you just lean into that, use precise language precisely, then there's no confusion on who's doing what message you're trying to send, and especially like when you talk about these recruits, what do we want to make sure that we're accomplishing why they're here, and what do we want their takeaways to be, and I think with our staff always having that in mind, whether it's a coach on the field, because it applies there, whether it's operations, trying to pull everything together, whether it's our strength staff, our nutrition staff, our athletic medicine staff, we all have that thought in mind. So I think we're very, very succinct. I always think there's another level we can reach, but when you have a group this large and so many moving parts, that you have to lean into that.
I think that's so key too, because I get a chance to talk to a lot of these, at least the high school recruits, and then a lot of the transfer portal guys. And while they are very connected to their position coaches, a lot of them mention somebody from the support staff that they connected to while they were here on their visit, or that they've talked to along the way. That's important for you guys, right? To connect outside of just, hey, this is who's coaching you, but it's that family feel outside of just your coach, right?
Yeah. I think we create a very natural recruiting environment so that they're gonna just naturally, organically, if you will, migrate to who maybe they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And I don't think any one of us are in a position where we're trying to put on this hard sell, but we are in a position to where we want to make sure they know all of the wonderful things about our football program, about this university, about our staff, and it's just so interesting to see how that plays out. And it even plays out more once they join our program, like who they'll migrate to. And, I absolutely love that part, because that just means you have all these outlets for support. And instead of them feeling like they can only go to Corey or only go to their position coach, or only go to Coach Rhule or Gus or I needed a name there. There's a lot of people on our staff, and Gus is obviously in that position where they are going to migrate to him. But it's for me, being in education like my whole career, right, and coached in the early part of my time in this profession, I absolutely love that part, because I might be the one that they're a little bit slower to come to, because I'm not in one spot at all times. I'm very behind the scenes, trying to make sure that everything is like it should be, right? And so when you get those opportunities to build those relationships with those kids, and they come up and they just plop down on your couch and they, hey, Dr. Elza, what about this? And then you can share your story, like, this is what I did. They're like, you did what? You were in athletics all this time, and on the rare occasion that Coach will say, hey, run that team meeting, I'm not going to be upstairs. And I'm like, oh man, I go into coach mode. It is amazing. But I look at, my next door neighbor, he said this so many times on his press conference, my next door neighbor in upstairs is Phil Snow. And that's another one that, he may not be the one that's running that defense on a daily basis, but the number of players that migrate to him just to sit and watch film and capture whatever they can, and you would think it would just be maybe the defensive guys, but he had such a strong understanding of special teams that you'd see players migrate into there. And I could go on and on across that building of the people that that they can build these relationships with and just go to and have the support that they're needing, and it's pretty cool. This team, and everything that has happened over the past 3 years as we go into year 4 for many of us, the culture of this team is the most beautiful thing that I've really probably ever been a part of, and I'm gonna talk a little here, because I think it's important to say this, because when we have all this change, everybody on the outside freaks out, and there's nothing on the inside that feels like we're freaking out. Mm-hmm. It's just the program is evolving. Staff's going to come and go, players are going to come and go, but we when Coach was addressing those elite juniors that were here this weekend, he talked about the brotherhood. And, I always have to throw in sisterhood too, but I just say it because there's 11 females on the staff, right? And, but he talks about that being intact, when he's speaking to these parents and these players that, potentially will come here. And it's so real, I could just remember, when we had all the change right after the bowl, with John Butler departing and getting a new DC and just all the things, Dylan and all those things that happened. Everybody on the outside was wanting so bad. If they asked me, God, are you okay? You're like, oh my gosh, we're having some of the best practices we've ever had. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do with the people that left. Because, everybody loved John, everybody loved Dylan, and I some of the things, I can't even remember. I'm missing some big pieces there, but y'all know we had a lot of change, right? The culture is intact. The brotherhood is real. The gelling of our staff with even turnover and the new members coming on, the energy's where it needs to be, the work ethic's where it needs to be. We just have a lot to do between now and spring ball, but it's never felt like we were taking steps backwards. It's just like it's part of the evolution of what you have to go to get to the point where you're winning consistently.
I feel like, too, and I was going to ask you about that, because in this day and age where it just feels like every year there's so many guys that go to the portal, and you look at all these programs, they lost so many guys. But, yeah, we lose some guys to the portal, but in the grand scheme of things, you had a lot of guys, a lot of young talent that wanted to stay put here, that there were a lot of programs that were trying to poach these guys, that they wanted to stay put.
Right.
That culture had to play a big part, that they wanted to stay put right here at Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I looked at our bowl practices. I look back on our bowl practices. That's probably, even though we're going through off season right now, where they're lifting every day and, just getting prepared for spring ball, preparing their bodies, bigger, stronger, faster, tougher. Tougher's one of our words. We want to be a very gritty, tough team. And I think back to those bowl practices. We weren't in the CFP, and that was one of our goals. But we did get to a bowl 2 years in a row. And then we had the staff turnover, and then, just the slow matriculation of players saying they may go in the portal. Because, it really wasn't, the portal wasn't open until the second. Mm-hmm. And so, you kind of go into it. Sometimes I think this is just my coach mindset that you're so much more aware of it. You're like, okay, what is this going to feel like? We hired Rob Orich, and he was trying to be the beginning stages of trying to plug in his defense, and Coach was coaching D-line. I mean, there was just so much going on, and you walk into it thinking, are they going to be half interested? Not that I ever believed that that's who our team is, but you're always just so self-aware when you go into these situations and you have this much change. And there were just no steps back. And you saw those younger players that you speak of. Everybody talked about how young our roster was this year. They were all of a sudden the big dude in the room, the big guy, the big leader. It's like they were waiting for their moment to get to be the most vocal leader out there, almost competing with one another to show everybody this is our new standard. Because even though you're in a bowl game for your 25 season, you're truly in a bowl game to prepare for your 26th season. And I don't know. I'm probably not doing a very good job of explaining it, but it's exactly what you would hope for, and more, because it's the leadership's right. The buy-in is there. The belief is there. And, we've got to bring all those pieces together so that when we hit that 26th season, come what is it? August 5th is when fall camp is, and that we are rolling, and we're on that mission to prove that we are who we say we are.
So when we had you on right when you first got here, and I think you're still trying to figure out what all the duties entailed with your position, how did it? I guess how has it felt like your job has evolved, and how do you feel like you've grown? I guess in what your role is in the last couple of years?
Okay. Wow, that's a big one. I think the biggest transition for me was, I was in a state leadership role in Texas, and I had to. It's not that you ever, changing jobs is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but it is about having the most impact. And no matter what, when you change any job, I don't care what it is, even if I changed here, you're going to have to kind of re-earn who you are. And there's two things that people can never take from you. It's your knowledge and your standards. And, I knew I needed to get in here and learn. I didn't need to be the person that was just speaking because I held some other really high title and come in here and act like I knew everything about everything, because I was surrounded by so many people that had been in college athletics the entire time. And so I have tried to, just get into a role and be, completely comfortable with being behind the scenes. But making sure that what I do on a daily basis in this job is to have impact. And, for me, impact is, pushing everybody to be at the very same level, to understand their role is to make players better, And I think I've learned a lot. The good thing is, the good and the bad, okay? College football changed a lot while we were here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so where I was behind, all of a sudden I caught up, because I could clearly see that everybody was going through the same change, and that the knowledge levels, had somewhat equalized if you were new to college football. Most people weren't. The football part I'm not new to, the recruiting and all that stuff. So then you hop into the rev share and the NIL and blah, blah, blah. So, I think coaches made some really strong moves with the way, that he hired Pat and kind of let Pat revamp the recruiting staff just to get the standard to where, you're still recruiting the high school athlete, but you've always got your eyes on, what is out there in college football. And, on my end of it, I'm not daily in that. I'm daily in the conversation, but I don't have like all these roles in it. And I think to myself, what can I do? And you support. That's what you do. You make sure that staff has everything they need to line everything up. And, because it is so vast and so, it's an everyday job, even though you're not recruiting every single day a college athlete. You're just waiting to see who goes in the portal like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. You can tell I'm just kind of unconsciously unwinding here, but that probably, in terms of the job itself, I tried to just get where I was needed, and it seems to have worked. I'm always, a person that wants to try to push people to be at the top of their game and understand, their value to this program and how it connects to our goals, to be in the CFP, to win the national championship. And I think, I hope I have I know I have a great amount of synergy with Coach Rhule, and I believe I have a great amount of synergy with our staff, that they understand, that there's not anything that I'm trying to maybe criticize them for. I just want them to be the most elite person in the role that they hold. I don't care, what role it is, whether it's operations or whether it's player development, or whether it's an athletic trainer. We all impact the winning on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like every time I talk to you, you're kind of involved in something that is not really football related, whether it be helping Luke Lindenmeyer get engaged.
There you go.
The painted shoes at Minnesota, which is really neat. How much do you enjoy that kind of part of it too? Because you talk about it, it's all part of the grand scheme of things and making sure that experience is elite, right?
Sure. I like that question. Coaches, and this to me lets me try to just reflect on what people may or may not know, but coaches, he's a huge visionary. And, some people, and I felt like I was really pretty good at this whenever I was, in the leadership role where I was leading an entire program. And because I always wanted to add more and more and more, and people were like, oh my gosh. And I loved that. And so where he's a huge idea guy, he may roll something out and think, maybe I'm not going to grab it and go, but I'm going to grab it and go. And because it represents, our ability to do things outside the box and do all these different things. So I love anything that he tasked me with, and whether it's the 7-on-7, and the Adidas camp that we host, whether it's the the senior dinner that he'll have coming up, in March. Whatever it is, I want to be able to roll it out very quickly. Bud Crawford coming and leading us out the tunnel. I mean, he just throws it, and I'm like, he didn't think I could get this done, and then you do it, and it vaults your program, just the marketing of it and all the things that go with it. Luke, that was probably not a Coach Rhule thing as much as it was just Luke saying, "Hey, Dr. Elza, I got a favor," and I'm like, okay, and I wasn't sure what it was, and then he's like, "I'm gonna propose to my girlfriend," and I was like, okay, who knows about this? Like, I didn't want anybody to know, I wanted it to be such a big surprise for her. Mm-hmm. And that was so much fun. He put me in a group text with her family and his family. I didn't know even who was on there, and I'm like, all right, y'all, we're gonna make this elite. I'm using that word a lot today, but it truly, that's who our program is. And so I'm texting them for months leading up to it, and it just, what a special occasion, what a special moment. And he texted me the other day. He's like, "I'd like to officially invite you to our wedding this summer since you made it happen." I was like, "Bro, I'm there."
That's gonna be the cool part of it. When you talk about, you want to win football games, but it's a lot more than that. And coming from the coaching background,
sure,
it is more than that.
It is. I mean, I still talk to my former players to this day. And, a couple of them, they were like, "Coach Elza," I mean, that's what I'm used to being called, not Dr. Elza. It's still very strange when I hear it, but "Coach Elza, we're going to come watch you in Nebraska." I'm like, "Come on," and they had a couple of my players had planned to come, and then they ended up following through. But, I stay in touch with them. It never changes. It won't change for me with these players here. And, where I'm not in a coach role, you're still building those same relationships and those same memories, and they're having, you're trying to have an impact on them, but let's just be real, they're truly having an impact on us. And you're so, so proud to be a part of something that, because if there's one thing that I think we do a great job of emphasizing, Coach does, is, we're here to make them better men. I mean, number one, let's go. Everything else will fall into place. And to be a part of that, it's just fun, and that moment with Luke and his fiance, it was, I just, that's what it's all about.
I think so. I find it interesting too. You're good at delegating, right? So you identify who can help you execute this, right? You can't take it all on yourself, which some people like me, sometimes I want to do everything myself. So how do you go about identifying who can help you execute these grand plans?
So, honestly, you're carrying out the mission of the head coach every day, but he's pulled in so many different directions that, the grand plans are just your daily, your daily life, honestly, within this football program. And so it's very programmed, in terms of like what Corey's going to do, what your coaches are going to do, what your athletic medicine, the expectations of going in and getting treatment or rehab or whatever it may be, the way they eat, the way they weigh in, the way they get hydrated, hydration testing, their body composition. I mean, I just could go. And so then you flip over, and then you've got Gus, in player development, which he, has 2 or 3 community service activities a week for these players to be a part of. And then, you flip over to your operations staff that, is truly in charge of making sure that point A and point B line up and they go. But I have loved the leadership within this program. You have a lot of different department heads, and I think sometimes the unsung hero is the operations folks. They're the ones that are really, truly not visible, and people aren't going to know their name. Brendan Steid asked me to pick up a speaking engagement the other day where you were talking to people that worked for this company that were behind the scenes, that like everything they did, nobody knew who they were. And, I think there's so much value in that, not because maybe I'm a little bit more behind the scenes here, but once I got in here, you really saw that the people that maybe are doing the lion's share of the work are maybe not going to get their name broadcasted or mentioned at a press conference or ever going to get to be in an interview. And I had done a PowerPoint, which I rarely do those, but sometimes you have to do it just to emphasize a point. So I threw a picture up there, and I said, "Who's that?" Matt Rhule. And I threw another picture up there. "Who's that?" Coach Holgerson. Then I throw another picture up there. Who's that? It was Rob Orich. They didn't know his name for sure, but he just got here. So but then I put up Corey, and just a lot of visibility within our program, obviously in those roles. So then I flipped over, and I even though she's out there quite a bit because I think Coach does a great job of just celebrating our staff. I put Kristen's picture up there, and I was like, who's that? And then I was like, I put Gus up there. And then I put Thomas Bowling up there, he's our director of operations. Didn't know who he was, and that's how I tied it together. And I explained, this is the guys that get probably all the visibility, but these guys are really truly pulling everything together behind the scenes. And I had a few other pictures up there, but I just, I really think that, I started to say this a minute ago. The leadership of this staff. And the way that the standard that Coach puts in place for us is it doesn't even have to be a standard because these people are just great leaders on their own. And what Coach does, he surrounds himself with really strong leaders that have obviously the complete buy-in to his vision for this program. But the beauty comes in how we work together because there's so many dynamics with people wanting to get credit, people wanting to be in the spotlight, to be all that. And we truly have this I kind of sound Pollyanna-ish, but honestly, we truly have this, devotion to the main thing, which again is the players and our role in making them, the best men that they can possibly be, plus the best football players. And it's so fun. I learn from them every day. I know I'm one of the old gray hairs on the staff, and I don't mind that, because I think I do bring a wisdom, from my other leadership roles that I think can help them grow as leaders. But they equally give back to me on, just insight and perspective that sometimes maybe I don't have. But there's no ego there. We're not trying to compete with each other. We're just trying to be great.
Yeah. It's just the balance of understanding where people fit their roles and embracing your roles. That's what make the great teams.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, you try to project that to the team, and I think they see it with us. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt they see that we're all one big happy family when it comes right down to it. So happy as a family can be, right?
Depends on the day, right?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so when I go out to practice, you're locked in. Your coach, as we talked about, you like watching. What's your favorite, when you're out at practice, what are you locked in on? Like, I want to watch this.
I like to watch the warm up. I want to see where the juice is coming. That day. I really, if there's, you would think I would. I mean, I've evaluated players. For so long. Before I was state AD, I was an AD in schools where we were trying to develop and change cultures and become winning programs across your athletic department, kind of like what Troy Dannon's trying to do here. And so I really, I lock in on players quite a bit, want to see what their body language is. But probably where my biggest lock-in is on our coaches. I like to see, just their different approaches to coaching. I like to see, and that's just from whether they're a yeller, or whether they're an observer. To the drills they roll out every day, because you have these we call it Indy. Everybody probably calls it Indy, but you're doing the individual drills that accent that position, and I just, that to me is where the beauty of everything is where things take step forward, and then when we get into the team, I love it, because we do give, every player gets equal reps, which makes for long practices. I always like to pick the brains of the new coaches and say, what are you seeing here that you haven't seen somewhere else? And they're like the number of reps that every player gets. And that's true developmental, but that's that thing that Coach always talks about. We're going to coach every player the same. And, when you hear a coach come in that's new and they see how we do things, and then you hear them say that, I think that's a thing of beauty, because you see these players that maybe they come in and, maybe they're walk-ons and then they end up being star players on our team. And that can get lost so much at this point in time, in a transactional world of college football. And I still think we still very much have that in place. And our coaches have to convey that and have to believe in that and have to buy into that. And I think, with the staff that we've hired, even though we've had some comings and goings, that has maintained, and we continue to make, every player has an equal opportunity to get on the field.
So do you go to practice and think, okay, do you rotate, like, I'm going to watch the wide receivers today, the defensive line tomorrow, or do you just how you feel given?
Well, it depends on, you're gonna every practice is gonna have a certain
what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever gone into it that way. I do sometimes. We'll go over and say, I want to watch this position today, but it's usually more of a kid and how they're, how are they battling through any sort of maybe adversity that they're having in that position. It's Malcolm, that our kid from Texas. Why am I forgetting his last name?
Simpson?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm not just fond of Texas kids. I want to maybe make sure we clear that up. But this was the day Corey Brown joined our staff, and I was down there. I love to see a new coach because they're gonna look different than the previous coach, and I love to see what are they going to hit first, because that tells you everything about that coach. And he was just down there doing just basic, fundamentals of defensive line play. And I was watching Malcolm. He was hurt last year, so he didn't really get to go through any of those until we got into the bowl practices, and to go through any of those drills. And and Corey, just right off the bat, Coach Brown is very, 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 very technical. But you could tell he's a patient guy. He's gonna push them, but he's gonna make them go back and do something fundamentally correct. And which I love that kind of coach. The fundamentals are where it's at. And I grabbed Malcolm afterwards, and I was like, Malcolm, I said, you were working your butt off, man. And he was like, Dr. Elza, I got to get better. He goes, my technique is not where it needs to be. But I loved that he knew that, because there were people, other players that were going through those drills that were more advanced. And some of that he just didn't get to do last year. He came off of high school. He was injured. So he was having just to watch and learn and to get in there. And, his fundamentals were a little, they weren't as crisp and maybe as pronounced. And but it was great, to see that. And I loved, how Corey was so patient with him. Malcolm's a big old dude. We need him on the field, but he's smart enough to know I'm not quite there yet, but I'm going to work my tail off to get there. So
I love that.
It's cool. Yeah, it was cool.
That. Hey, I got to ask you about flag football, too, because you talk about another thing that I feel like you kind of took the bull by the horns when we had the flag football camp. And to see the growth in the numbers from the first year to the second year, I went down there last year, and there were girls all over the field.
Yeah.
How exciting is it to know that that's going to be the next sport here, and how much do you believe it will take off here at Nebraska?
It's almost surreal. I remember... I'm going back to my college days, and I was a college softball player, and our coach would not let us play flag football. And then the year, after I graduated, I had one more year left in school, and so I played on a flag football team, and then I played for 10 years in DFW on a flag football team. So I am passionate about it. I don't know how good I was, but it's to see that that's now a Division I college sport. That is amazing, and. I don't even know if I could put it into words. We just went in front of all the other D1 schools in the nation, and we said, we want to have it here. And I can't wait to see who they hire. I can't wait to see what athletes that we bring in. I know Coach made an official offer when he was on the road the other day, and but it still feels so surreal. Is it really happening? But it is, so. I just can't wait for it to, I think the next step when they have announced the coach and do all those things and, start setting up a schedule. I know it's 2028, right?
Yeah, it will be the first season.
Yeah. And I excuse my ignorance on this, but I guess they'll just put together a schedule and play whoever they can.
Yeah. I think they'll have more teams that will follow suit. Again, follow Nebraska, but I think the coach is going to be hired by the summer. They'll have a couple athletes, and they'll build the team, and then, they'll build the schedule how they can. So.
Yeah. It's funny because it was just last night I was looking through social media, and there was a young lady on there that they were just showing highlights of her, playing flag football. And it looked like she was a quarterback and maybe also a wide receiver. And I was like, just so athletic. And I think it's great. I think what's like, I can tell you from my state role, what in Texas, when we very first started talking about adding flag football as a potential sport, because it just has to be proposed. It has to go through kind of a promulgation process, if you will, where they propose and superintendents have to vote on it. But people get on the wrong topics just like that. Well, it's going to affect volleyball, or it's going to affect basketball, or it's going to affect soccer, or where are they going to practice if football's in? I mean, all the things that you shouldn't be thinking about. It's like, don't give reasons not to do it. Find the reasons to do it. Because even though it hasn't been highly prevalent, when the NFL got behind it, I think that really, really, really helped. And there were plenty of girls that would like to play football. And it's, even though this is another version of it, why would we hold that back? It doesn't make sense to me. You figure it out, and that's what I've liked. What I appreciate about our administration, and and with Troy, it's like, okay, we may not everybody may not have a team, we may not have all these things, but we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna be the first to do it, and we're gonna do it at a very high level. So I'm excited. I can't wait for it to start. And
you got some eligibility left? I mean, maybe you could make a dream come true,
No, golly. Golly, I tried to throw a ball the other day. I was like, I didn't even look athletic anymore, and that's embarrassing. But it is what it is. You move forward so other people can step up, right?
I love it. I love it. Hey, you mentioned earlier you got 11 women on the staff, the sisterhood of Nebraska football. Tell us about some of them and just how important those women are to making Nebraska football go.
Oh, wow. So I would probably forget everybody's name. That's what's going to happen to me whenever I sit here. You have our nutrition staff. That's all women except for one male. We have 2 female athletic trainers. We have Hallie, who's head coach support and staff support. And then we have Avery, that's over in recruiting, director of recruiting operations. And we share a locker room. And it is truly a locker room experience. And, I hadn't had that in years. I mean, when you become the state AD, you're not lockering with anybody. You're just, and even when you're an AD in schools, for the period of time, you're not lockering with anybody. The only time you're really lockering with people is if you're coaching. And so we all have a staff locker room together. And I think the most magical thing that is like right before the game, we get in there and, I am never going to move out of my coach mode. It is I don't know if it seems nerdy to them or if they see me as a coach, but I'm like, here's what we're going to do today. I love it. I just get in there and I hit them hard. I also do it on text message with all of our other groups. But, just telling them, let's go. We're going into battle. And then it's after the game. We all are in there at the same time. And, we have a ceremony that I'm not going to share outside this group, but we have one in there. And we didn't do it the past couple of years. This first year that we've done it. And I just, it honestly, it's elevated, like we support one another and we support everybody. And we don't think we're any different because we're not, males in football, but we do have a little bit of a sisterhood in there, that we celebrate the work that we do each and every day, and it's a lot of fun. Good people.
Great stuff. Well, I could keep asking you a million questions. We'll have to make this a regular episode, I feel like, because we had some people requesting this. We finally were able to make it happen. So thank you so much. Again, we'll have to circle back again. I feel like maybe in the summer.
Let's do it. I'm going to come in next time with questions for you.
I was about to say, you said you wanted a list of questions.
Yeah, I got to, but I want to work on them.
Yeah.
Like I'd probably be spitballing a little bit.
I do feel like somebody should interview me sometime. But
yeah, could I do that? Could I be the one?
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I really think I could. I'd need some time just to because you're seeing a lot too from your chair. And, I think one of the questions that I get all the time is, what is it in the high school level that I was at in Texas? It was, you never felt like a true male versus female.
Yeah.
But you did sometimes, have to ask for a seat at the table and all those things. And I always said, when you get a seat at that table, don't be the person talking all the time unless you've got something to contribute, the weight method. why am I talking?
Yeah.
Talk when you need to talk, not just because you have a seat at the table. But do you find that, in the area that you're in, that sometimes they prefer to?
And I think it's grown, obviously, since I started in this business in sports broadcasting through the years. Obviously, look at all the women that are everywhere in every kind of role. Like, I'm the first host of woman on Sports Nightly that they've had,
that.
and just so I think all the things that have kind of changed and the doors that have been open for women. But yeah, certainly that's definitely changed. And I think, like you said, you work hard and you earn your spot, and then people don't question you as much. But there, at the beginning, there certainly are some questions. But then once you earn your stripes, I feel like you don't have to fight for it as much. But it's definitely grown throughout the years. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's not one of those things you go in with a chip on your shoulder, for me personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it was for you, but it was just like, I've got to continue. Maybe sometimes people have asked me this: did you have to have more knowledge than the average person to be able to go into roles that were, primarily male dominated? And I don't know. I can't, that's almost like saying you're smarter than someone else.
Yeah.
But I did find that I needed to sharpen my skill a little bit in terms of maybe just the meticulous details of things. Because if you can't get in the weeds and talk about it, then the credibility's gone just like that. Some people would say it's unfair. I don't know. I enjoy gaining knowledge. So I never felt like it was unfair. I just had to make sure that I was always on and always ready to answer questions that were maybe, a little bit outside of a realm of what a woman traditionally does.
Yeah, no, I feel that too. And I think too, you and I maybe are on the same page on this. We both have very supportive parents that, hey, no, there's no, you know, and, my dad was part of the OSSAA and was a part of changing from 6-on-6 to 5-on-5 and fought for girls to be able to, so I think they treated me like my brother, and it was just kind of, you want to go into a male-dominated field? Okay, go for it. So I think you're the same with your parents.
1,000%.
I never thought of it any differently than just go for it, and I think that's where I didn't see it in any other way once I got here, and people started asking me that question. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's somebody has to tell you can, and it it's always a blessing when it comes from home, and my mom and dad, I think if I'd have said that I wanted to be, a country singer where I can't even carry a note, they'd have told me, yes, I could have, I didn't evolve that way. That'd have probably been a fiasco, but they did just continue to just say, keep going. You're all right. And I'm not a person that, I've never been a person that someone else's criticism, it just bounces right off of me. I mean, it doesn't hit me fatally like it can others. And because I know what I'm capable of. I've never doubted what I'm capable of. I also know when I need to know more, when I need to be more knowledgeable and more develop another skill and do all these things. And I think that's helped me too, because I went through with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, because people were saying, no, you can't do this. You can't transition to college sports and have any sort of success. And you can't be the AD of the state of Texas. You can't. I mean, that chip on my shoulder, but it was never to a point where it held me back. It just it inspired me to try to do more for others. Honestly, I think women, there's a role for every woman in any part of college football that they want to be in. Honestly, and maybe it's because I work for Matt Rhule, and he really doesn't see you for what gender you are. He sees you for what are you capable of doing.
He really does. I mean,
he does. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I hope all women, have those opportunities that want to get into football, because sometimes it's a little outside the norm for a woman to be sitting in a room where it's just all coaches or whatever it might be. But if you work for a leader that says, I don't care about that because she knows this, this, and this, and she's capable of doing these things, then you have a seat at the table. So it's pretty amazing.
See, I love that. See, that we need to do more of this.
We do. We
gotta
do.
make that happen.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time again, and for all your help for me. I love seeing you on game days. Comparing the shoe game, your shoe game is excellent.
Yeah, your shoe
you
game.
You need shoe lockers, right, in the locker room.
I
for
do.
Your shoes.
I did. I don't know that Coach Rhule knew that until you just said that out loud.
Oh, sorry.
It makes me sound like a prima donna, but we did have a staff member move out, and I was like, I want my shoes over here too, and I did that. It's bad.
We always compare the shoe game, but
That's right.
No, thank you for all your help for me, and I know a lot of women look up to you around here. So,
Thank you for including me
appreciate
anytime.
your time. All right, we'll have to have you back soon. Again, that is Dr. Susan Elza, the Assistant AD of Football Administration, here with us on a special edition of Husker Women's Wednesday, powered by Emeritus. Thanks for listening and watching, and as always, make sure you subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.